my harmonicas?
You don't want one from 3 weeks ago.
No. There.
All right. Well, good morning.
Good morning.
We're going to start our service off today, once again, with our opening hymn of the month, Bella Ciao. So please go on and rise in body or spirit.
The world is waking outside my window. Bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, ciao, ciao. Drags my senses into the sunlight, for there are things that I must do. Wish me luck now, I have to leave you. Bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, ciao, ciao. With my friends down up to the city, we're gonna shake the gates of hell. When they go low, we must this. Bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, ciao, ciao. But I don't want to look in the mirror to find myself just like you.
Good morning. And welcome, everyone. We're glad to be together today. I see faces that are new to me. I had a long period of time when I wasn't able to be here, so I apologize if I don't recognize you, and want you to know, if you are new here, that every week is a little bit different here. So, my name is Gail. Hi, Schwa. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm your worship associate on this so far still beautiful Sunday morning. We're going to begin our worship with opening words from the Reverend Dr. David Breeden, titled Into the Circle. We gather into this circle. We gather into this circle of care to dream, to envision, to embody and achieve the compassion we dream, the justice we envision, the dignity of each in an ever-growing circle of love and justice. All right, let me explain. Oh, we're having one of those mornings. All right. Well, I'm Heather Norby. I am the Spiritual Life Director for this congregation, and I'm very grateful to Gail today. She's not just your worship associate, she's your worship leader. She created the entire service. So thank you for that, Gail. That gave me a chance to focus on Jane Eskenazi this week, on writing her celebration of life service and meeting with her family and coordinating for that. And so that is one of the items on my announcements today, that her service, Jane's service, will be today in the sanctuary starting at 3 p.m. Afterwards, we will go out and plant an avocado tree that her son selected in her honor out in our yard by our patio, and then we will have some food and fellowship in the social hall. So you are all invited to come, especially if you knew Jane and you have stories to share with her family. They would really love to hear that. Thank you. I would also like to let you know that we do have assisted listening devices available to anyone who needs one. You can probably pick them up in the tech room with Crystal today. We have a Buildings and Grounds Work Day coming up on Saturday, February 28th from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. This is where we all chip in and take care of our buildings and grounds, because this place only exists because of us, and it's up to us to take care of it. Nobody else takes care of it. So, many hands make light work. Please join us. There'll be hedge trimming and can crushing. And Crystal says, wear closed-toed shoes and see Dorothy for more information. Bring lots of water and some food, yes. The Interfaith Coalition of Polk County is going to have a potluck picnic on February 15th. That's a Sunday. It's in the afternoon. I don't have the exact time yet, but it will be at Christ the King Episcopal Church, which is on the north side of town. And so you're all invited to bring a dish and join us for interfaith fellowship and fun. This is something that we as leaders like to do. We like to get all of our congregants together to meet and have conversation, because that's what we're about. We're about interfaith dialogue and bringing peace through that dialogue. Save the date also for March 21st. That's a Saturday, and we're having a yard sale here. This is a big fundraiser for us. So start collecting your items, and you can drop them off the week before that Saturday, which is the week of March 15th. And then we set up on Friday, so please feel free to volunteer for setup, volunteer to be here on that Saturday to help take money and help people out. Also, see Dorothy for more info. Our next starting point sessions, which are for new people who are learning about Unitarian Universalism, or people who have been around and just want to join in the fun and learning, those sessions will start in February or March. Vaisel says, stay tuned for updates. So there also should be something in the newsletter soon. Today, after service and before Jane's service, we're going to have a very short leadership meeting. This is for committee chairs and other leaders. We're just going to catch up on policies and procedures like we talked about last meeting. Jen's not here. I'm running the meeting. It's going to be short. So please join me. All right. Check the back of your order of service and our e-newsletter, which is published on Mondays, for more information on other events. All right. Thank you. And Gail will begin our chalice lighting.
Helen, would you please do us the honor of lighting our chalice? Thank you. The flaming chalice is the symbol of this Unitarian Universalist faith. We light it each Sunday, as do UU churches around the world, to create sacred space, to connect us with one another, and to remember who we are as people of faith. But did you know that the image of the chalice was first created as an act of resistance in the Second World War? Well, lifelong UUs don't get to answer. And our theme this month is resistance, so it seemed apropos to mention this, and I want to share a reading that I pulled from Worship Web, which is a UUA, a Unitarian Universalist Association website. And the title is The Healing Cup, The Story of the Flaming Chalice. It was prepared by Noreen Kimball in 2015. So referencing World War II, during that war, a lot of people living in Eastern Europe, Unitarians, Jews, and others, were in danger of being put in prison or killed by Nazi soldiers. A group of Unitarians came together in Boston, Massachusetts, to form the Unitarian Service Committee. And their plan was to help the people in danger from the Nazis. The director of the service committee was the Unitarian minister, Charles Joy. Reverend Joy had an office in Portugal, so he would be near the people he wanted to help. He was in charge of a whole secret group of agents and messengers who worked hard to find safe routes for people to escape. Reverend Joy and his assistants often needed to ask governments and other organizations for their help to save people who were in danger. They would send messages to anyone in government who might give them money, transportation, or a safe route. Because they were a new organization, though, not very many people had heard of them. This made it much harder for Reverend Joy and the people in the Unitarian Service Committee to get the help they needed. In those days during the war, when danger was everywhere, people were running away from their own countries. Often, people who were escaping and people who wanted to help did not speak the same language. Reverend Joy decided it would be much better if the service committee had an official symbol or picture to help identify its members. With a picture or symbol, it wouldn't matter if people couldn't read the language. So it looked like Reverend Joy would need to find an artist. And I've already apologized in advance to a couple of people if I butcher names or words in this language that's not familiar to me. I apologize in advance. So the artist that Reverend Joy found was a man named Hans Deutsch. Deutsch had escaped from the Nazis in Paris, France, where he was in danger because he drew cartoons showing people how evil the Nazis were. Reverend Joy asked Deutsch to create a symbol to print on service committee papers to make them look important. He wanted the symbol to impress governments and police who had the power to help people move to safety. For his drawing, Deutsch borrowed an old symbol of strength and freedom from Czechoslovakia, a chalice with a flame. Reverend Joy wrote to his friends in Boston that the new symbol seemed to show the real spirit of the Unitarian religion. It showed a chalice or cup that was used for giving a healing drink to others. And it showed a flame on top of the chalice because a flame was often used to represent a spirit of helpfulness and sacrifice. So, the flaming chalice became the official symbol of the Unitarian Service Committee. Many years later, the flaming chalice became the symbol of Unitarian Universalist groups all over the world. By the early 1970s, enough Unitarian Universalists had heard the story of the flaming chalice symbol that they began to light a flaming chalice as part of the worship service in their church. Over these years, this practice has spread over most of the United States and Canada. What does it mean to have a symbol like this? Well, one thing is it means that wherever you see a flaming chalice, you know that there are Unitarians and Universalists nearby. Having a symbol can also remind you of what's most important to you, and sometimes a reminder can make a big difference. There's a story here of one woman who told how the flaming chalice of her homeland, Czechoslovakia, helped her while she was in a Nazi prison camp. Printed under the picture of the Czech flaming chalice was the motto, Pravda Vítězí, which means in English, truth overcomes or truth prevails. Every single morning in that terrible camp, the old woman said, she traced a picture of a flaming chalice in the sand with her finger. Then she wrote the motto underneath it. It gave me the strength to live each day, she said. Whenever she drew the chalice in the dirt, she was reminded that someday the world would remember the important truth that every single person is important and should be free to think and believe as he or she chooses. When we light the chalice at the beginning of our service every Sunday, we can enjoy it because it is a lovely thing to do. But we can also remember the story of the flaming chalice and the strength it has given people.
Let us recite together the declaration and the covenant we make to ensure that our shared Unitarian Universalist value of equity lights up the world. We declare that every person is inherently worthy and has the right to flourish with dignity, love, and compassion. We covenant to use our time, wisdom, attention, and money to build and sustain fully accessible and inclusive communities. Thank you. Let let us rise in body or spirit now to sing in English and Spanish, hymn number 123, Spirit of Life.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me. Fuente amor, ven hacia mí.
So now is our time for Message for All Ages. If our young people and young at heart would like to come forward. We'll help you get up. All right, here I got to scooch over. Is this all right? Okay. All right, so who here knows and or remembers their grandparents? Yeah, sort of, some people, not everybody. Oh, wow. So sometimes we don't know that much about our parents or our grandparents especially, right? We don't know what their stories are. Would you be surprised to know that your grandparents were heroes? If you had found out that they were heroes? So this is the story of how one boy did learn that his grandparents were part of a resistance movement, and they were very heroic in their actions. So as a boy, he has a weird name. Well, it's weird to me, sorry, it's not weird to them. His name is Artemis Joukowsky III. So he was often asked by his grandmother, "What are you going to do that is important with your life?" Well, that's a big question. It's huge. But when he was in 8th grade, Artemis interviewed his grandmother for a school assignment. And that is when he found out her big answer to that big question. He didn't know any of this about her before. So Artemis's grandmother was named Martha Sharp, and his grandfather was Waitstill. His grandfather was a Unitarian minister. And in 1939, World War II was causing have you heard about World War II? It was causing great pain and destruction in Europe. Artemis's grandparents were sent to Prague by the American Unitarian Association to help people. They had 2 young children, but they decided to leave them safely at home with friends while they accepted this mission, which was risky and full of hardship. Soon after the Sharps arrived in Prague, the Nazis occupied the city. Now, Rather than rescue alone, their mission also involved resistance to the authorities. Helping others became even more dangerous. Are we seeing? And yes, there's pictures up on the screen of these grandparents. So it became really dangerous, but they did not stop. They resisted not with weapons, but with courage. One snowy night, Martha escorted a man hunted by the Gestapo across the city to the British embassy. Soldiers stopped them again and again. Each time, Martha calmly held up her American passport and said, "Americans." And each time, they were waved through. I can't imagine how her heart must have been pounding during this time. Finally, at the embassy door, they were stopped one last time. Martha spoke boldly, demanded to be let inside, and the door opened. The man was saved. That rescue was just one of hundreds that they performed. Martha and Wait Still Sharp resisted hate by choosing compassion. They resisted fear by choosing action. They resisted injustice by helping people to escape safely. When Artemis grew up, he made a movie about his grandparents. He called it Two Who Dared, and later it was remade with the help of Ken Burns into a documentary called Defying the Nazis. So when Artemis shares his grandparents' story, he reminds us that resistance does not always require daring or drama. Life, he says, is made of many small, righteous choices. Most of us will never be called to resist in the same way that Martha and Waitstill did, but every day we are given chances to resist cruelty, resist silence, and resist the idea that one person doesn't matter. And each time we choose kindness, courage, or justice, we are doing something important with our lives. What do you think? So, is anybody going to go find out from their grandparents what they might have done years ago that they haven't told them, and maybe we can write an assignment about them for school? Maybe? Maybe? Your grandparents might surprise you. Mm-hmm. Yeah? Little variation on the story. Yeah? Okay. All right. So okay. All right. So I just think it's kind of interesting sometimes to actually go and ask our seniors, what did you do when you were young? Like, what would surprise me about you? And maybe you could find out that they did something that would really impress you.
Yes, the war of Vietnam.
Yep.
I was this far away from flying to Israel during the 3-day war, but by the time I started making my preparations, it was over. It's like, what the heck?
Thank you. And we'll see you after the service. Yes, tell stories in RE. It's important to share stories, definitely. Well, here we gather, tucked back in this friendly neighborhood, between those beautiful tall pines. We are a small church with big aspirations, and we can achieve those aspirations if everyone gives of their time, talents, and treasures. Our shared Unitarian Universalist value of generosity calls us to be faithful UUs by covenanting with one another to freely and compassionately share our presence and resources. This is the time in our worship service when we are given the opportunity to share our treasures. Today, the ushers will pass the plates for our collection as you help to support this church community and make it a place for all of us to learn and grow. Some sacred noodling. thank you all for your blessings. Gail, would you please light the healing candle? Thank you. Feels like every week we find ourselves in need of more and more healing as the news keeps going, and the violence keeps escalating. And I'm thankful for Gail's service today because it is a reminder that history contains patterns. And unfortunately, those are patterns of violence and authoritarianism, and it is up to us to stop those cycles. And so Gail picked out this reading for me today to remind us that International Holocaust Remembrance Day is January 27th. That would be Tuesday. The events of World War II include many stories of resistance. Our service today is inspired by a pair of Unitarians who were the second and third Americans to be bestowed the honor of Righteous Among the Nations. Righteous Among the Nations is an official title given to non-Jews who risked their lives to rescue Jews during the Holocaust. This recognition is awarded by Yad Vashem, the World Holocaust Remembrance Center. As explained on their website, attitudes towards the Jews during the Holocaust ranged from indifference to hostility. The mainstream watched as their former neighbors were rounded up. Some collaborated with the perpetrators, and many benefited from the expropriation of the Jews' property. But in a world of total moral collapse, there was a small minority who mustered extraordinary courage to uphold human values, risking their lives to save Jews by hiding them in their homes, providing false papers, and assisting their escape. The righteous among the nations. The righteous among the nations come from different countries and nationalities and from all walks of life. They teach us that each and every person can make a difference. And so our healing candle was lit today in remembrance of all who have suffered or perished because of their identity, and we light it in honor of all who risk their own safety and comfort to help. We are feeling the echoes of history right now, especially as we sit in the wake of another life so senselessly lost because of state violence in Minnesota. So as we look for ways to heal, let us also remember that we are the ones who need to stay courageous and to help those who are being persecuted, to help families who are being torn apart. Spirit of life and love, stay with us in these moments as we do what we need to do. Amen. Our ritual of the sharing of joys and sorrows is a prayerful time in which we process all of this, listening to our hearts and our minds and our bodies to discern what we need. This ritual allows for us to connect our lives and deepen our faith in the understanding that we do indeed belong to one another. We are here to care for one another, and through caring, we illuminate the beauty of our interdependence. In our Joys and Sorrows book, you are able to write any significant joy or sorrow occurring in your life that you would like for the congregation to know. Today I have a note from Isaiah, who tells us that one of his favorite cats named Ella died 2 days ago. I'm sorry to hear that. And he says, while I'm sad, she's gone. I'm happy. She lived a wonderful life. She was 16 years old. Crystal writes that she had an amazing time in New York with her sister and niece, and they saw Broadway shows and the Statue of Liberty. And she leaves us with this quote from Emma Lazarus: "A mighty woman with a torch, whose flame is the imprisoned lightning, and her name is Mother of Exiles." That's from the New Colossus. And John Hughes has written a poem for us again. As long as I remember, the rain's been coming down, clouds of mystery, pouring confusion on the ground. A voice thunders through the lightning like an earthquake across the sky, with an answer clear as crystal. Only you can stop the rain. Thank you, John. There's a lot of truth in that. Let us say our small prayer together. You are not alone. We are holding it together. Some joys and sorrows are too tender to speak aloud, and so we participate in a quiet ritual of sharing. I invite you to come forward for this ritual of joys and sorrows, taking whichever stone or stones feels right to you and dropping it in the bowl, connecting to others, feeling the power of being together in this community.
shall overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe that we shall overcome someday.
Yay.
Pedro will put stones in the bowl of water for those who are joining us on Zoom or our streaming services. Good morning, and thank you for being with us. And so much love and blessings to all of you. We'll say our prayer one more time. You are not alone. We are holding it together. Well, we have a hymn to sing, number 318, We Would Be One.
It's in the standard hymnal of anybody.
It's in our gray hymnal.
So I mentioned during the Message for All Ages that Artemis Jakowski, from an 8th grade assignment to talk to an elder, basically developed a lifelong project. And I mentioned the movie that he made. This is the documentary that he ended up, Ken Burns helped him bring it to the next level, as Ken Burns can do. So it's called Defying the Nazis, The Sharps War, and I do recommend it. This is from the Polk County Library Cooperative. I watched it a couple of weeks ago. It's only 80 minutes long. If I can watch it, you can too, because I don't watch violence. There's a lot of things I avoid, and I have not a great attention span. But this held my interest, and it's only the last 5 minutes where I had to look away from the screen a little bit. So I do recommend this. It's a very good story about the experience of Martha and Waitstill Sharp, what led them to Europe, how they helped change lives, but also how it changed their lives. It permanently altered the course of their own lives and their family. So I do recommend this documentary. And I have another reading that I found on Worship Web. Working through the night, Martha and Waitstill Sharp burned all their notes and papers. After this, they would keep no records of the refugees they smuggled out of Nazi-occupied Europe. For their own safety, and for the safety of those they were assisting, nothing could be written. A simple church mission had turned into a dangerous cloak and dagger proposition. The Sharps, who had degrees from Harvard and Radcliffe, and 2 beautiful young children, had left behind a life of comfort and privilege in Wellesley, Massachusetts, I guess Wellesley Hills, where Waitstill served as minister of the Unitarian Church. Now, they found themselves secretly burning documents in an office in Prague, Czechoslovakia, on the night of March 14th, 1939. What had led them to that moment? In September of 1938, the Munich Pact ceded the Sudetenland, the border regions of Czechoslovakia, to the Nazis in exchange for the promise of peace. The flow of refugees to Prague's Unitarian Church increased as Jews, political dissidents, intellectuals, and others targeted by the Nazis fled the Sudetenland following the Nazi annexation. The American Unitarian Association asked Reverend Waitstill Sharp to visit Czechoslovakia and coordinate relief work there. The Sharps left for Europe in February 1939, leaving their children, ages 3 and 6, in the care of close friends from the congregation. When they accepted that mission, they did not know what lay ahead. At first, the Sharps' work in Prague included setting up a network of volunteers to obtain visas, passage, education, and employment for refugees. However, the situation for refugees rapidly deteriorated. When it became clear that the Nazis were approaching, the Sharps, instead of returning home, burned their records and vowed to continue their work. The following day, the Nazis marched into Prague. That same day, Martha guided a top resistance leader to asylum at the British Embassy. Stopped by Nazi guards 3 times, Martha used her American passport to get both of them safely through each checkpoint. A few days later, Waitstill arranged for a member of the Czech parliament to be smuggled from a hospital morgue in a body bag. Excuse me. But the Gestapo would not allow the work of people like the Sharps to continue. In July, their office was closed and the furniture thrown into the street. Still, they stayed on in Prague. In August, Waitstill attended a conference in Switzerland and was not allowed to re-enter occupied Czechoslovakia. Under threat of imminent arrest by the Gestapo, Martha fled Prague alone. The Sharps reunited in Paris and sailed for home. Then in May of 1940, Frederick May Elliott, president of the American Unitarian Association, asked the Sharps to return to Europe as representatives of the newly formed Unitarian Service Committee. With much of Europe now under Nazi occupation, they worked from Marseille in Free France and in Lisbon, Portugal, the last port of hope for many refugees from Nazi-occupied lands. Among those helped were Nobel laureate physicist Otto Meyerhoff and writers Heinrich Mann, Franz Werfel, and Leon, I can't do that name. It won't sound right. Smuggling Leon out of Europe posed particular problems as he was on the Nazis' most wanted list. Dressed as a French peasant woman, Martha accompanied him by train from Marseille to the Spanish border, where she distracted the guards so that he would not be discovered. When no extra tickets were available, Martha gave up her own ticket so that Leon and his wife could sail to New York with Waitstill. But not all of those that the Sharps helped were famous. Martha worked tirelessly to find ways to break through the anti-Semitic United States immigration bureaucracy to allow Jewish children to come to the United States. In 1940, Mary Ann Scheckler was 12 years old, one of triplet sisters who had fled Vienna with their parents just steps ahead of the Nazis. A lifetime later, living in California, Mary Ann remembered that day and Martha Sharp. I remember a figure. She was a very, very elegant lady, kind of serious and very concerned. You looked up to her. What she did for us was outstanding. It will not be forgotten. What Martha did, she did for many, but she did not do it alone. The Sharps worked with others from the Unitarian Service Committee and other agencies. In addition to being honored by Yad Vashem in 2006, the Sharps have been recognized by the United States Holocaust Museum and the United States House of Representatives. But more importantly, their work is recognized by more than 2,000 adults and children that the Unitarian Service Committee helped rescue from Nazi persecution. We'll now have a hymn which will help us center, number 388, Dona Nobis Pacem.
I might fall down.
Three. Dona nobis pacem pacem. Dona nobis 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 pacem pacem. Dona nobis 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 pacem pacem. Dona nobis 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 pacem.
Yippee skipping.
So as you've heard, on a snowy night in Prague in 1939, Martha Sharp jumped from a taxi, darted around a corner, and flattened herself into a doorway. She knew there was a Gestapo officer following her, from the taxi, I might add. As he clicked past her, she entered an unlit apartment building, dashed up 5 flights of stairs, and rang the bell of a known anti-Nazi leader. Martha did not know who he was. She only knew him as Mr. X. She knew only that she had a 6-hour window in which to usher him to safety. She was there to rescue him, but the people in that apartment had no reason to trust her. The woman who opened the door denied knowing the man. Martha begged to see him, knowing that they had little time to escape. She produced her American passport, which the woman snatched away and shut the door in Martha's face. Finally, a man opened the door, and Martha explained that she was there to transport him to the British embassy so that they could smuggle him out of Czechoslovakia. As they walked across the city, they were repeatedly stopped by Gestapo officers. Each time, Martha flashed her American passport, and they were waved on. Just outside the embassy, she had to convince the officer that the man was her husband and that he was late for a meeting with the ambassador. Finally, her companion was allowed to pass. After Martha had safely delivered her charge to the embassy, she returned to her apartment and reconvened with her husband Waitstill, who had just completed a similar mission. As they watched out their window, Nazi soldiers looted Prague stores and warehouses. Martha had not received extensive training for such a rescue mission. She was a social worker, not a spy or a soldier. She was not carrying a weapon. She was carrying an American passport, a fierce sense of responsibility, and a willingness to resist evil, not with slogans, but with her actions and her choices. Resistance often comes to us dressed in grand language, marches, movements, manifestos. But the story of Martha Sharp and her husband Waitstill Sharp reminds us that resistance is also quiet, improvisational, and deeply human. It is a doorbell rung at the right moment, a lie told to the powerful in order to tell the truth to history, a choice made again and again, often at great personal cost. The Sharps were Unitarians. They were parents. They were ordinary people who found themselves living in extraordinary times. In 1939, they reluctantly left their young children behind in the United States and traveled to Europe under the sponsorship of the American Unitarian Association. What began as a relief mission became almost overnight a resistance operation against Nazism. They stayed one step ahead of the Gestapo as they helped Jews, dissidents, journalists, artists, and children escape occupied Europe. They helped thousands find safety. They did this not because they were fearless, but because they believed some things were more important than their fear. This is resistance as Unitarian Universalists understand it, not resistance for its own sake, but resistance rooted in dignity. Resistance grounded in the conviction that every human life, all life, has worth. Resistance shows up not only in public witness, but in logistics, paperwork, forged documents, creating milk distribution centers so the children don't starve, and leading long, dangerous journeys across borders. Another one of the children that Martha Sharp rescued was Rosemary Feigl, a Jewish teenager fleeing Vienna after Kristallnacht. Decades later, what she remembered most clearly about her rescuer was not the danger, but Martha's hat, a fancy hat with a pheasant feather. To a frightened child, that hat signaled normalcy, safety, competence, and hope. Resistance sometimes looks like courage. Sometimes it looks like elegance. Sometimes it looks like someone making sure a child feels less afraid. In 1941, the Sharps helped establish what we now know as the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee. From this work came a symbol many of us recognize, the flaming chalice, originally used to authenticate documents and protect lives. Our most cherished religious symbol was born not in abstraction, but in resistance. It was meant to say, this person is under our care. And yet the Sharps' story does not allow us the comfort of simple hero worship. Their resistance came at a cost. Their children grew up largely without them. Their marriage did not survive the aftermath of the war. Their lives were changed irrevocably. Resistance is not tidy. It is not without collateral damage. It demands discernment, humility, and a willingness to live with unresolved moral tension. Their grandson, Artemis Tchaikovsky III, who helped bring their story to light, reminds us that his grandparents did not perform one grand heroic act. They made thousands of small choices, maybe some big ones too. But resistance, he says, is not made of grandiose moments, but of righteous ones, moments when we choose how we will treat the person in front of us. So what does resistance ask of us now? It's worth noting here that the Sharps were not the first Unitarians who were called to the mission in Czechoslovakia. 17 others had been asked and refused the assignment. Not all of us can smuggle refugees across borders. Not all of us can outrun authoritarian regimes. But every one of us lives in a time that demands resistance to dehumanization. Every one of us is faced with choices about silence or speech, comfort or conscience, convenience or courage. Resistance today may look like protecting the rights of immigrants. It may look like standing against anti-Semitism, racism, transphobia, and all the old hatreds wearing new clothes. It may look like supporting human rights organizations, showing up for local justice work, or refusing to normalize cruelty. It may look like asking again and again the question Martha Sharp asked her grandson: what are you going to do that is important with your life? Friends, resistance does not require that we be fearless. It requires that we be faithful to our values, to one another, and to the sacred worth of every person. May we remember that resistance is not only something that we admire in history, it is something we are called to practice now. May we have the courage to ring the doorbell. May we have the wisdom to know when to speak and when to act. And may our lives, in small and faithful ways, become acts of resistance grounded in love. May it be so.
Definitely worthy of applause, Gal. Thank you for sharing that really important story with us today. My closing words are from the Reverend Michelle Collins. Leave this place with hope rekindled, not as wishful thinking, but as stubborn practice. In a world drenched with despair, choose joy, choose action. Choose to believe another way is possible and live as if it's already breaking through. Let us rise and body or spirit one more time to sing together. This is hymn number 1024, When the Spirit Says Do, in the teal hymnal. When the Spirit says march, and shout and sing. The words will be on the screen.
You got to march when the Spirit says march. When the Spirit says march, you gotta march, oh Lord. You gotta march when the Spirit says march. 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 Shout. You gotta shout when the Spirit says shout. Spirit says fight, you gotta fight, oh Lord. Gotta fight when the Spirit says fight. Spirit says fight, Spirit says fight, Spirit says fight, Spirit says fight, Spirit says fight. You gotta sing when the Spirit says sing. You gotta sing when the Spirit says sing. When the Spirit says sing, you gotta sing, oh Lord. You gotta sing when the Spirit says sing. Spirit says sing, 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 Spirit says sing.
Or something like that.
Please join me as we extinguish our chalice. We extinguish this chalice, but not the light of truth, the warmth of love, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts and out into the world. What is this thing doing?
Well, the assignment is clear. Go out into the world, find your courage, find all the ways that you are being called to resist. And remember that you are loved, you are worthy, and you are a blessing. Thank you so much for joining us today. We'll see you in the social hall.
So let your light shine, shine before man. Let your light so shine, so that we might find some kindness again. We all need help. You find some wine. She's going to show me something. Fruit be great for the in-between period to help people stick around and get cranky. Whatever is left can be yeah. Let your light so shine before me. Let your light